Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's work session with the Raleigh City Council. We're going to review the Southeast Special Area Study and Wake County Plan Wake update, and also the extension of the Raleigh Extraterritorial Jurisdiction, ETJ. So we have Donald Belk from Planning and Development and Matthew Clem from Planning and Development here to speak to us.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. We'll get started when we get the presentation up. Matthew Clem, Planning and Development. We're here today to update you on the Southeast Special Study Area. We recognize that there's a lot of complex content in the backup material provided. So to cover everything today, we'll spend our time focusing on the study at a higher level. It's not common for planning and development to conduct a study for an 18 square mile area. That's more than 11,000 acres. So we want to do a really good job in presenting this in this presentation to impart the magnitude of the area under study and the necessity for more coarse-grained policy guidance than what you may typically consider. I would also like to make the point that what we're showing you today is a preview of the plan's final contents and what you'll see in forthcoming comprehensive plan amendments. So this is just some draft recommendations for conversation and consideration. What I'll walk through today is an update on Plan Wake, setting some regional context to understand the area, lessons learned from our neighbors, some guiding principles to frame future growth policy, and manage the expansion of our planning jurisdiction, or ETJ. As we discussed at our last touch point with Council, Plan Wake is the update to the Wake County Long Range Plan. This is a map of the growth framework map from Plan Wake. And what this map represents for Raleigh is an expectation of how and where the city will grow. Plan Wake was adopted on April 5th, 2021. And as our project and Plan Wake advanced together, staff maintained a close coordination to ensure that their planning and our planning was well aligned. Moving on to regional context, the study area, as the name suggests, is in the southeasternmost part of Wake County. And as I said early on, the study area is large. This graphic shows a size comparison of the study area to a few other familiar places. So the study area is outlined in blue, and the comparisons are to the pink shapes. So in the upper left-hand corner, you see the comparison to downtown Raleigh. In the upper right-hand corner, you see the comparison to the Beltline. So the study area is about half the size of the inside the Beltline area of our city. In the south, the bottom left-hand corner, you can see the study area compared to Triangle Town Center. And then finally, the study area is about the size of the town of Chapel Hill. So a big area to focus on. To help frame the study area for policy considerations and for future planning, we have broken it into 5 sections. The southwest section or area is 2,100 acres roughly, and is shown here in blue. This area corresponds with our short-range urban service area, which under our current annexation agreement with Wake County is expected to be annexed and served with public utilities the soonest. This area is within an economic development priority area and an opportunity zone. There's also one planned I-540 interchange in this area. This is also the location of the Rand Lee tract, which you see in brown. Most of that tract is on the west side of I-540. There is some remnants of that tract on the east side of the I-540 alignment. And that property, of course, is jointly owned by the city and the county. The south tract is about 1,900 acres, the south area of the study. And it's outside of I-540 and also has one interchange, and is shown here in blue and pink. There's significant publicly owned land in this area, including the location of the Neuse River Resource Recovery Facility, which is the city's wastewater treatment operation. So when you flush a toilet, it goes to area number 2. The northwest is about 1,400 acres, and it is south of Pool Road and between the Neuse River and I-540. Our existing street plan includes an extension of Hodge Road through this area, south to connect to Auburn-Nightdale Road, improving interconnectivity of our local transportation network. Unfortunately, this long-planned extension has been made unattainable by the location and design of an I-540 interchange. And so we're working to see if there's an issue, or excuse me, a fix to that connectivity issue. There's also a pending rezoning application in this area for a 500-acre planned development. Rezoning Z16 is currently in-house and under review it's a planned development district, which will include about 2,000 homes, 6.5 acres of commercial and mixed-use development, and more than 90 acres of combined amenity area and open space. This is a look at the master plan, and you can see the proposed new street grids shown throughout in white, and the various planned zoning areas for different densities and residential densities in yellow and orange, and then there's areas of red and blue that indicate non-residential areas. The north section, about 2,200 acres, currently has significant agriculture and forestry activity in some county residential subdivisions that are served by private utilities. The east section, 3,400 acres, is the largest and furthest from the city's center, and extends all the way to the border with Johnson County. So hopefully that helps provide a little regional context for the area. We will revisit the 5 sub-areas later and frame out some policy decisions regarding ETJ expansion, annexation, and future development. So one of the main drivers for this study is the construction of I-540. So we wanted to know how the highway has influenced the development patterns elsewhere in the region. We're lucky to be able to observe decades of development trends to the construction of I-540 in the region. And we have a great opportunity to learn from what has occurred elsewhere and use those observations to make decisions about Raleigh's future. So this map shows all of Wake County. Raleigh is shown in gray and is generally in the center of the county. This is I-540 as it is constructed today. This is where I-540 will extend once fully complete. This is our study area, and this is the town of Apex. So Apex makes a great case study on I-540 development influence because of its similarities to our study area. Most of Apex was inside of I-540, but there has been significant development outside of I-540 since its construction in 2013. So before development, this part of Apex outside of I-540 shares many characteristics with the study area, most notably the rural built condition. And so a brief timeline on Apex and 540. 540 was completed in 2013. That same year, Apex adopted their own 2030 comprehensive plan. Since then, more than 5,000 acres have been annexed into the town of Apex. And 2 years ago, Apex updated their comprehensive plan. So here's a map of the annexations in Apex since 2013, shown with the stars where the downtown is located of Apex. This is the location of 540 through Apex. So to the right, or to the east rather, of 540, there has been some annexation activity, largely infill type, relatively smaller developments. The majority of the activity has happened outside of I-540 to the west, far from the town's core. This map shows the residential and commercial development in Apex since 2013. Blue is residential and purple is non-residential. Most of the commercial development has occurred inside 540, and most residential development has occurred outside of 540. Again, there's the alignment of 540. Apex has seen nearly 11,000 new residential units built since 2013. Those units spread across around 4,700 acres, making the average residential density of this growth around 3 units per acre. This is the Apex Future Land Use Map from 2013. And so development that occurred between 2013 and 2019 was relatively consistent with this guidance in their plan. The plan called for mostly low density and rural development. In 2019, Apex updated their plan to add neighborhood and commercial mixed-use centers and development types to serve those areas outside of 540. And so it doesn't do us any good to throw Apex under the bus here because at this moment in time, the Raleigh 2030 Comprehensive Plan is calling for essentially that same type of low density and rural development. This is our future land use map. The dark green is rural residential, and the yellow is low density residential, which comprises most of the study area. The blue you see is our publicly owned land that provides the wastewater treatment operation. There are a few small clusters of community mixed use in red. The geography of this area is different than Apex, but the plan is very similar to what Apex was planning for. Apex was planning for a sprawling, low-density rural residential development, and that's exactly what they got. Right now, Raleigh is planning for the same, and the question that we pose in this study is that what we want? To think about how to guide development across these 11,000 acres, we formulated some guiding principles based on best planning practices and public input to date. And those principles are encourage mixed-use development to reduce per capita vehicle miles traveled generated by new development. We want to encourage multiple property consolidation and master planning so new developments can provide and produce more mixed-use communities with housing at a wide range of price points and useful interconnected multimodal transportation networks. We want to protect and elevate the Neuse River as an environmental and recreational asset. We want to enhance greenway connections and utilize them at transportation networks and encourage GSI and forthcoming development. Like many other plans, we realize these principles through mapped and narrative policies that guide the legislative city council decisions of zoning and development regulation and budgeting. The next series of slides look at potential future land use map amendments to guide rezoning decisions and encourage the principles that we laid out. The first set of potential changes to the future land use map are in area number 1, which is inside 540. The map changes to this area are roughly 1,000 acres from low density residential to a mix of moderate density residential, community mixed use, and office and residential mixed use. These changes are intended to increase the residential density in the area and create a more efficient land use pattern and encourage mixed use development to provide land for office and retail uses and employment generating uses. So moderate density residential on the future land use map recommends a range of 6 to 14 units per acre and can produce detached, attached houses, townhouses, and apartment buildings. Office and residential use on the map could produce the same types of housing as the previous category, though at a higher density. In addition to those residential uses, this category can also produce office and personal services uses located in mixed-use buildings. Community mixed use can produce the same uses as the 2 previous categories, plus a broader range of commercial uses, including grocery stores and shopping centers. The second set of changes proposed to the future land use map and these draft recommendations is outside of I-540. The plan currently calls for more low-density residential and rural residential uses here. In addition to I-540, this area is also adjacent to the Neuse River Resource Recovery Facility and significant city-owned land, all shown in blue to the east. The changes to the map in this area include mapping significant business and commercial service designations and some office and residential mixed-use designations, providing for land for job-generating uses. We also plan to have narrative policies contained in the plan to encourage green tech and clean tech industries in those locations. Specifically, the business and commercial services designation on the future land use map here could produce light industrial and employment generating uses, and it's shown in purple. About a third of this area is currently used as a private construction debris landfill. So envisioning some reuse of that property at some point in the future to some employment generating opportunity. Often residential mixed use in this area as well could potentially provide a buffer and transition to those adjacent uses. The last implementation measure we want to talk about is how and where to expand Raleigh's ETJ, or extraterritorial jurisdiction. ETJ expansion would bring new land into Raleigh zoning and allow for us to guide and regulate development. So remember this map from earlier. The areas we described also represent 5 potential steps for ETJ expansion. And this table represents a potential timing to take those actions. And so to understand the fiscal impacts of the potential expansion of ETJ, cost estimates were provided by Parks and Rec, Transportation, and Police and Fire. The analysis was based on the potential linear feet of new streets to serve the expansion, impervious surfaces, and potential population projections for the ETJ expansion to the year 2050. This table shows the current population in each area, their size and property value. The current revenue and expense estimates in this table are based on existing development pattern if these properties were served by the city today. So in most cases, the expense to serve these areas exceeds the revenue generated by the tax. Now, ETJ expansion does not also mean immediate annexation or provision of service. By analyzing the current built form and the costs to serve it helps us understand why changes to the development pattern can help balance the budget. These next series of slides show rough costs for operational expense and one-time capital costs for Parks, Transportation, Police, and Fire. The Parks Department has forecast significant one-time costs for parkland and greenway projects to serve the study area. Transportation similarly has forecasted large one-time costs for shared operational facility. The Police Department has forecast no large one-time capital costs, but significant annual operating costs. And Fire has significant costs for both operating and one-time capital costs. And so at this phase, I think the most helpful takeaways from this level of information is that one-time major investments are typically financed through bonds. So between now and 2050, there are likely to be several bonds that are intended to finance those investments. Annual operating costs are largely covered by the general fund, which is supported predominantly by property tax revenue. Knowing these costs are forecast to serve the study area to 2050, changes to zoning and the development pattern can help us decide how many residents are served by these significant costs. More densely populated areas allows the government to provide services more efficiently. Houses closer together mean that the same investments in streets can serve more families. A fire truck or a first responder can be closer to more houses from a single location. Concentrating residential uses produces more reliable markets and better economy for commercial development because more customers means more businesses, and more businesses mean more jobs. Residential density can produce and encourage walkable and bikeable areas and can lessen the investment the city needs to make in car-only transportation infrastructure. So our next step is to take this information and planning framework to the community in early summer 2021. And we plan to be back to council later in the summer for a final report. To summarize the draft recommendations, shift the recommended development pattern in the area from low and rural density to moderate density and mixed use. To achieve this development pattern in the long term, council will need to show strong support for any potential changes to the future land use, considering zoning decisions to prevent sprawl and of low density development. ETJ extension also requires action of City Council to rezone a significant acreage. That first step of ETJ expansion is about 2,000 acres. And so not that just something to be considering, and what we'll be planning to bring forward later is what district should be zoned there when it is time to make that decision. Is the rezoning consistent with the future land use map of today, or is the recommended future land, or is it the recommended future land use map of this plan? And finally, for your comment today, we'd like to know if there are any additional topics you would like the public's input on in this next phase of engagement. And with that, I'm happy to take questions. I know that was a lot of content that we went through pretty quickly. What questions can I answer?
Councilmember Branch, I saw your hand.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Matthew and staff for the work there. I think the next step going to the public and getting that feedback is significant. I know I spoke with a resident today who lives outside of our current ETJ, who is they own property out there, and they look forward to speaking with staff and learning more about it. At this time, they seem very favorable in us extending our ETJ to the area. To me, this is about us planning properly. We know 540 is coming, and this gives us an opportunity to determine how we want to see development in that area. So I really take this serious and look forward to your presentation later this summer to figure out our next steps of going forward. But for me, keeping in mind, the Neuse River and working with DOT and timing, because my understanding is that 540 will be complete by 2029. So we're talking 8 years out, and we saw how Apex has grown significantly in just roughly 8 years. So thank you.
Councilmember Cox.
Yes, thank you. In looking at the backup memo, I noticed the fire department provided a lot of detail about the estimated construction costs for fire stations. However, there wasn't any detail really about annual operating costs. And I noticed the police department factored in a 3% inflation rate per year into their estimates. And it doesn't look like there is a similar inflation rate factored in for the fire service cost. And I was wondering if we could also get some detail about equipment cost and how much does a ladder truck cost? How much does a regular fire truck cost? Things like that. And some more breakdown into what the operating costs are. So that's one question, or set of questions, actually. Another question I have is regarding the operating costs. Do those numbers factor in annual salary increases and increases for benefits? And that's not entirely clear either. A third question is more of a fundamental question. This is, as you pointed out, this is a large area to annex into the city, and it's divided into 5 areas, and so areas 4 and 5. So this is a fundamental question. Should Raleigh be annexing all of this land, or should 4 and 5 be annexed into Knightdale? And what communications have we had with Knightdale about our annexation plans, and what are their annexation plans? And so those are my questions. And they don't have to be answered today, obviously. So thank you.
Sure, Councilmember Cox. I think what I can provide for you today is a comment on your last point about annexation and ETJ expansion. So the Southeast Special Study Area is all a part of an existing annexation agreement brokered by Wake County with all of the towns and cities therein. And the study area is included in what is called our short and long range urban service areas. And so the planning to expand at some point into those areas has been part of our joint agreement for some time. And we have had continued conversation with Knightdale and Garner, who is our neighbor to the south of the study area, about those plans. And we can continue those conversations to that end.
Yes, I would recommend continuing those conversations. Obviously, I don't know when that plan was originally developed. I assume it was several years ago. And so as the area continues to grow and develop and as 540 continues to be constructed, it might be worthwhile to have a conversation with our neighbors and revisit that.
And I've
Councilmember
made note
Stewart.
of the fiscal questions you've made as well, and we can report back with just some clarity there.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Clem, this is incredible work and great information. One of the things that sticks out at me is a real interest in making sure we're planning along our floodplain for both conservation and protection. I know that we often hear from our neighbors downstream that Raleigh contributes to massive amounts of flooding. If we aren't careful, this is the last area in our city where we can really kind of help absorb a lot of our own runoff before it empties into downstream. So I want us to be really thoughtful about that, as well as preservation of farmland in making sure that we have farmland left in Wake County in the future. So just a couple of big picture thoughts.
Anyone else have a question? Okay, that was, you're right, that was a lot to absorb, a lot of information, but really good work. So thank you. Do we have any additional report from staff? Okay, and no additional questions? All right, did you get the feedback that you were looking for?
Yes, I do believe we do have that. Thank you.
Okay, Council Member Branch.
Sorry, one more question. Can you look at Nightdale's growth since 540? Because being a native, I remember Nightdale pre 540 and as it is now, and how 540 has impacted their development. That would be significant for me.
Yep, we can look into that.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for the report today. And I'm going to ask everybody to please check back in about 1:15, and we'll get started at 1 o'clock. Thank you.